What is up, everybody? It is Alex from Heavy New York calling from the quarantine zone again, and this time we are here with Tyler of Capra. Thank you so much for your time today, man. It's great to have you here.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Yeah. So, I'm really looking forward for the rest of the world to hear the brand new album, In Transmission. The record is absolutely badass. For people who haven't heard the album yet, obviously, like, could the first single that you released, The Locust Preacher, almost serve as, like, a clear representation of what the whole album is going to sound like, or is that just one little taste of it?
I want to say the answer is both. It definitely shows the technical side. It shows the riffs. It shows everything that the album will encase. It is quite a bit of a roller coaster throughout the rest of the album. So it's gonna be a banger, that's for sure.
Yeah, I remember reading about the album and like, you kind of wanted to have like a 90s throwback sort of element into it, like from the post-hardcore
Yes.
days, which even without reading it, I felt that just looking at the album cover and it instantly made me reminisce of like Jane Doe or something like that.
Yes, absolutely.
So,
That's kind of the style we went for.
oh,
The whole Kurt Ballou style of art, we wanted to encompass that. Converge is a very big influence of mine. Kurt Ballou, everybody in that band.
hmm
So we definitely wanted to mix 90s, early 2000s hardcore nostalgia with like a modern day feel. That way you're hearing it, you're like, this is fresh and I've heard it before. I'm so glad this is back. We don't really have many bands like that these days.
yeah. I mean, I've noticed that it is starting to come back. I mean, kind of like obviously this is subjective, but I think like a lot of like what made post-hardcore so popular, like with the Glass Jaws and the Poison the Wells and the Converges,
Yes,
like is now kind of like in the vein of bands like Code Orange, Twitching Tongues, Employed to Serve. So I think it's still there. It just kind of evolved in a way.
it is. There's a lot of cool new ones like Ind and Gulch and stuff that are they're doing very cool hardcore elements in
Mhm.
their genres.
Did maybe last year, being the anniversary, the 20-year anniversary of, Glassjaw's Everything You Ever Wanted to Know About Silence or At the Drive-In's Relationship of Command, maybe like inspire like the making of this album? Was that kind of like a pinnacle moment that made the making of this album come to light?
I wish I could say yes, but we actually finished this album in 2019, and we've been sitting on it for about a year and a half now.
hmm
We actually went back and during the pandemic in quarantine, we recorded 3 songs that we've added to this album since then, just because we were bored in quarantine and we wrote more songs and we wanted to put them out. So we've been sitting on it for quite a while.
hmm I've always said that with like the post-hardcore style, I do consider it to be fairly experimental. As some bands have some more melody, some bands are more rhythm-driven, some bands are very concept-driven. Was there maybe kind of like a preconceived idea, or maybe like an underlying idea that In Transmission revolved around, or was there maybe still like a lot of improvising or trial and error involved?
I just wanted it to have as many hard-hitting rock and roll riffs as well as like this chaotic element to it. So I want it to switch your mood. I want you to feel like how people feel on a daily basis of just like going through the day. Some days you have good days, some days you have bad days. And when you're hearing our music together, it just really encapsulates our emotions from deep within.
Because I've noticed that there's like different vibes behind this album, like going from like the Locust Preacher to Medusa to Mutt or something like that. So, like, would you consider almost each song to be reminiscent of what you or any of the other members were feeling at that particular time in a way?
Absolutely. Typically, I take a bunch of riffs, and it just depends on what I'm going through in the style that I write the song. And then I know Crow, she brings all the vocals and all the lyrics, and so whatever she's going through at the time, I've heard her describe it as she takes her emotions and she turns it into a monster, and then she will write almost a letter to that monster, or she will turn it into something else, and it just sits so well on top of each other. So we want to bring that chaotic energy, and she wants to add that dark element, and it's almost a level of like saying we're with you, when people deal with issues, when they're struggling with mental health or they're struggling with anything in their lives, we're there with you. We feel it.
Definitely.
And we want to write the soundtrack to that.
And that's what I've liked about this album. Like I said, like it's very like raw in its sound and just as raw with its emotion. Like it's just straight up raw, and that's what I thought
Yeah.
about it. And one thing I was curious about is I did love Crow's lyrics in this album. Like it really like was engaged. I almost feel like the album definitely can resonate with people personally, but I feel like it's also literal enough to the point where like you can almost put yourself in the band's shoes in a way. Like, has there ever been a time where maybe like Crow's lyrics or maybe a lyrical idea maybe influenced on how you wrote the riffs or arranged the music in a way?
No, that's an interesting take, and maybe in the future it will. I love her lyrics. I love reading her lyrics. They're like poetry to me. We've always done it in reverse order, but yeah, I mean, later on in the future, I could see some lyrics, and that could influence the way that I write the song.
Hmm. And do you like to leave the music open to interpretation, or maybe engage the listener into the meaning of what Capra's music is?
I like to leave it open to interpretation. I want whatever you're struggling with. I want you to be able to relate to it, and I want you to take what you want, and I just want to help you in some way.
Hmm. And that's a great way to put it. Oh, we got a special guest.
Yeah.
That reminded me of my favorite meme to describe Zoom meetings, where they like it shows a person sitting at their desk with a Zoom and they have their cat like taped up to a wall.
Oh, yeah. She's this is my little dog, and she's crazy.
Yeah,
She likes to be on camera.
yeah. I mean, welcome to join the interview, as long as she doesn't interrupt.
Don't tell her that.
But so like what I'm curious is I've always wanted to ask musicians this because I love talking about hardcore music. Here in New York City, I mean, it's impossible to escape it. It's the soundtrack to New York City.
Yeah, it's so great.
Yeah, but like to you, because I've heard people say that hardcore is just revolving around the music. But I've heard people say that hardcore is an attitude, it's a personality, it's an image. To you, what makes something hardcore?
I agree that it is an attitude. It's very hard to describe. It's a great question. You got to want it. You got to feel it. I know I dig deep into my mental health and my emotions, and I really pull out all of that. I pull out everything that I can't say, and to me that's what hardcore music is. It's diving deep. It's acknowledging your issues, being honest with yourself, trying to help others by putting your own emotional state on the line. So, damn, that's a good question.
I like to ask the brain picking questions with the hardcore
Yeah.
bands.
What is hardcore? It's just really taking everything, all of your dark aspects out, putting it on the line, and giving it to people in hopes that it can help them survive and relate to what they're going through as well.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't want to talk about this kind of stuff. They don't want to talk about mental health these days, and I think it's very important. And so giving someone else a piece of yourself to say, hey, I'm there with you, it really goes a long way.
Yeah, I've always said that hardcore is the most brutally honest form of music because there's a lot of
It
metal
is.
bands that there's like metal bands that have concepts or like explore different metaphorical territories or fantasy, and nothing wrong with that at all. But I feel like when it comes to hardcore, it has to be as real as it gets. I think it's real in its sound.
It's heart, man. You're exactly right. It's heart. It's love. It's anger. It's therapy. It's just sharing yourself with other people.
Do you find that when, like, because clearly your emotions and your own mental state influence the making of the music, do you find it maybe like the longer you're working on something though, the harder it is to kind of like maintain that mental state in a way? Like, do you try to get...
Yes, absolutely. I'm actually there right now. We've been so cooped up, and we've been writing a lot of new songs, but I'm getting to the point where I feel like I've channeled all of my inner aggression from being stuck in one place for so long in the pandemic that things are almost starting to sound the same. And I'm trying to get out of that box, and I need social interaction. I need shows. I need to go uh, I need to feel other people's music. I need that help in return. As we were saying with hardcore and sharing yourself, I need others to share themselves so that I can get out of my box.
Yeah,
I feel like there is it's hard for all of us right now. I feel like everybody's kind of stuck.
Yeah, regardless of how you feel about the world around you, there's no doubt that this is affecting everybody negatively. It's just there's a giant subtraction sign over everybody's head, and a positive sign is not necessarily anything that's good at the moment in today's day and age, anyway. So, it's
we're deep in the hole.
Yeah, but I mean, there's only there's no such thing as the bottom. There's just the point where we decide to stop digging. Eventually, we'll dig our way out.
That's right.
Yep. And now, being that, like, is that why do you feel like maybe the songs are relatively short in a way? Like, because, you kind of want to be quick and to the point. You don't want to, like, express the same emotion for like 7.5 minutes or something like that.
Yeah, we definitely, I think our longest song is about 4 minutes and 2 seconds. And it really just comes down to when we feel the song is done. We're not going to sugarcoat it. We're not going to milk it. We want our songs to be as raw as possible. And when they say they're done, they're done.
Yeah. And it's almost kind of like an emotional feeling in a way, right? Like it's like instinctual. It's not like there's a way of knowing or a discipline that lets you know when it's done.
You let it pass. And when that song feels finished, typically it's taken its course and it's done.
Do you feel that maybe like writing obviously, I'm not trying to undermine hardcore music in any way, shape, or form. I am impressed with the technical aspects of it. But do you feel that being that it relies on so much raw energy and so much passion in a way that when you're like, after you're done writing the song and you're putting it in Pro Tools or Logic or whatever you're using, that there's really not too much to adjust when you are done recording it?
Yeah, kind of. We just wrote a new song, and it's very straightforward. It's kind of reminiscent of Torture Ship on the album, where it's just a traditional, straightforward hardcore song, and everybody loves it. I like it. It's just one of those things where it's like, is this too simple? Is this does this need more? And I gotta take myself out of that area sometimes and not overcomplicate songs. So it is pretty straightforward with it. I tend to put those chaos riffs in everything, and sometimes I gotta let myself know that we don't need them for this track in particular.
Do you find it maybe easier to come up with riffs or come up with songwriting ideas when maybe like you are alone in this isolated environment, being that, or like, do you maybe find it easier to come up with ideas when you're in the company of your other bandmates?
Typically when I'm isolated and when I'm alone, it really gives me the focus to hash out an idea for the riff first. And then when I get in the company of the rest of my bandmates, it kind of all falls together. Sometimes we have songs. The Locust Preacher, it completely wrote itself. I had 3 of the riffs, and then Jeremy and I got together, and it just came out that way. It's a very cool feeling when songs write themselves like that. So to get back to the question, I think isolating while writing definitely helps me to get angrier, I think.
Yeah. Do a little doom scrolling as well in the process, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And what's funny is like, I've had this discussion with like, different like doctors and different psychiatrists, and they say that, relying on negativity or relying on darkness is to create something is not necessarily good for you, but that's complete nonsense, right? Like
to a musician, it's complete nonsense.
Yeah, and I feel like it's not like you rely on it, you just have a healthy coping mechanism of dealing with it, which is music.
Yeah, for sure. I've actually been worried about that. During this whole process, I've been kind of addressing some issues within my own mental health and my own situation. So I started taking meds. I started seeing a therapist. I started meditating in this whole process just to get some clarity. And it's great, but it also kind of makes me nervous in the fact of, is this going to affect my writing? Is this going to make me less angry? Am I going to write a happy riff tomorrow? And that's not what we want here.
Yeah. Well, maybe the happiest. I mean, there's a lot of happy hardcore music too. I mean, Sick of It All's music gets me in a good mood. Not Agnostic Front gets me in a good mood, but I guess that's
They
all.
do.
I guess that's all a matter of opinion, right?
Yeah, I just don't want those major chords. I want the raw and the nasty, as you heard on the first album.
Do you have? Is there a usual? Do a little guitar nerd discussion, but like, is there a usual go-to tuning for hardcore music?
I would say a lot of the earlier ones, I believe, were in like drop D.
At most, right?
Now, I mean, we're in drop C sharp. I believe between C and C sharp is now the more modern day hardcore tuning.
Yeah. I mean, I've seen some like guitars that were like they're tuned so low that like it looks like that they're playing like a bow and arrow kind of.
Yeah, tuned to G or A, and it just sounds like absolute thunder when they hit it.
Yeah, or Cattle Decapitation. I mean, they're in standard the whole time, so.
Yeah, a lot of hardcore bands did that. I believe Power Trip also.
Oh, really?
Was a standard tuning.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's very interesting. I never knew that. I mean, their stuff sounds relentless, so.
It's so fast and heavy.
Yeah, I remember first listening to Nightmare Logic, finding it absurd that other humans were behind that album.
Dude, that is a masterpiece.
Yeah, it's insane. That I put Nightmare Logic on the same level of thrash metal as like Master of Puppets or Rain and Blood.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Or
I'm with you on that, 100%.
Yeah, it's a thrash classic at this point. Now, when it comes to playing live, being that there is so much raw energy, when it comes to like being a live musician as well, and that there's so much raw energy in your songwriting process, does that make it a similar energy when you play live as well, or do you still consider playing live and songwriting to be two completely separate processes?
Songwriting energy, we go off a little bit when we're writing in our practice space. Live energy, we break ourselves. We get hurt. You can see a little piece of that in the Locust Preacher video, but when there's a crowd in front of us, we want to make you move as much as possible. So I'm running around, I'm head banging, I'm hurt for days after a show. And so I think there's a little bit of that in the songwriting aspect. We definitely want to feel it. We definitely want to move. If we're not moving, nobody else is moving.
Do you feel that is another aspect that you have to practice, though, in a way? Is that like another... do you almost feel like it's like, in a way, like a choreography almost?
No. It's like we turn into different people. As soon as we get on stage, it's a Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde situation. I lose all thoughts. It's my peaceful moment. I may look crazy. I may look like a madman, but it's a very peaceful moment where I don't have to worry about bills and I don't have to think about random things that I typically do. And I just let myself go. And you kind of black out.
Yeah. It's amazing. I could tell just by listening to the music that when you play this live, you're just going to go away. And I look forward to when concerts return, because you need to play a show at St. Vitus in Brooklyn when this
that's a dream venue of mine, absolutely.
Yeah,
I would love to play there.
Yeah, I'm planning. Before the pandemic, I was interviewing in their basement on like a daily basis, and I might have to move in there when this is over for like a week.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's been a lot of cool shows at St. Vitus. I've had a few friends play there as well, and had nothing but great to say about it. So it's definitely playing New York and just playing, the Northeast is a dream of mine. Yeah. I feel like that's where our music really, really translates well.
Yeah, I feel like that's where, this is the hardcore capital of the world. It's always going to be, and How is like the hardcore scene in Louisiana? Because I mean, there's been a history of great bands to come out of Louisiana between like I Hate God and Goat
Yeah.
Whore and a lot of other great bands. Was there kind of like a hardcore scene that you were affiliated with at the time?
No, we're the sludge capital. We're the sludge and doom capital of the world down here. So we do have like I Hate God, Crowbar, and stuff like that. There's a few hardcore bands that are really, really good, but we don't have that scene typically. It's more in our area. It's more death metal and stoner rock or doom. So when we play, I mean, I feel like we can cater to those audiences, but they don't truly understand what we're doing. We go over to New Orleans and we have, we have a better audience there. They typically get it. The more east we go, when we hit Florida, they understand. Texas, they get it. It's just something about Louisiana. They like their slow, sludgy doom metal.
Hmm. That's I gotta.
But we have a few hardcore bands. There's a band in New Orleans that you could look up called Torture Garden. That is absolutely one of my favorite bands right now.
Okay.
And they're kind of similar to us in a way. It's just real fast, raw, female-fronted energy.
It's funny too because I've always thought that like it's funny how you call New Orleans the sludge metal capital. Colorado right now is the doom metal capital, like Denver with Primitive Man and the Company of Serpents. All that.
Yeah.
Like New York's the hardcore capital. Tampa's the death metal capital. Massachusetts is the metalcore capital. I'm starting to think if like whether we realize it or not, if geography has an influence on your sound.
I think so. I think you're onto something. That would be a good social experiment.
I'm gonna try that. Like I'm gonna start a band in every state and just to see what style it ends up being.
Yeah, I would tune into this Travel Channel TV show.
We might be onto something.
I think so.
We'll talk after I log off this interview.
Yeah, let's do this.
All right. So before we go, I want to thank you so much for your time today. Is there just anything else with the release of In Transmission that you would like to promote in terms of, like maybe a live stream performance or new merch or anything else you'd like to plug?
We do have new merch. We put it up on our Bandcamp this past week. It is going pretty quickly, which is great. We also have a new single coming out within the next 2 weeks, I believe, week and a half. At some point, you'll hear more from the album, and then we have the album release date of April 23rd.
And I look forward to the rest of the world hearing it. Thank you so much.
I so look forward to it. I can't wait.
Times are tough. We need pissed off music. So
that's right.
Yep. I'll everybody. I know that when all this is over, they're gonna play like very mainstream music, all that. I'm like, motherfucker, this is the soundtrack to the times we need.
Yeah, we're living in a time where it's got to be angry. We don't need Fleetwood Mac right now. We need pissed off hardcore.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be the soundtrack. I see them playing it in schools when they teach this when they teach this in history class.
Yeah, fingers crossed.
Yeah. But thank you so much, everybody. We are here with.
I appreciate it.
We are here with Capra. Be sure to pick up In Transmission April 23rd. This is Alex from Heavy New York. We will see you next time.